Make sure. Checking. Yep, all live. Perfect. Welcome back. Wow. Welcome back to the Bully Airline Podcast. This is episode 141. I'm your host, Joe Lane Pavlon. And there is a lot to break down from what happened yesterday in Abu Dhabi. Let's get started right away. First and foremost, before we get started, I do want to set up my heartfelt condolences, thoughts, and prayers to the Untitled family. Of course, we learned this past week of the passing of four-time Indianapolis 500 winner Al Unser. Al Unser Sr., better known as Big Al, had a very lengthy career in the race car and, of course, was part of the Big Unser family that equated to several wins in the Indianapolis 500-mile race, including his late brother Bobby Unser, who, of course, we know the man they call Uncle Bobby, passed away this spring. And, of course, his older son, Bobby Jr., sadly died as well. The best news that we got to see was after Elio Castroneves' record-tying fourth Indianapolis 500 win. The other three drivers that won their own four Indy 500s, including AJ Foyt, the first to do it, and Rick Mears, as well as Al Unser himself, they were all in attendance to watch history be made once again, and a picture was taken with all four of the four-time Indy 500 winners. So maybe Elio's win was just meant to be when you look at it. And Al Unser was 82 years old, and of course, he had a 17-year battle with cancer, and he will be greatly missed. Danny, I bring you on to the podcast, and we were just talking about the passing of Al Unser Sr. before we head into F1 here.
Yeah, man, that it truly is sad to hear that he had passed away from cancer.
Yeah,
It's it's like it's pretty much heart wrenching, you know.
yeah. What made him so strong was the guy was a trooper. He battled cancer for 17 years and looked
Wow,
very strong
that's
and
like a long
humble
time.
through the whole process. And
Yeah,
he was a trooper. And we'll definitely be sorely missed. Also, my thoughts are with the Earnhardt family. Dale Earnhardt's younger brother, Daniel Earnhardt, better known as Danny Earnhardt Sr., he passed away at the age of 66 after an illness as well. Of course, the
yeah,
younger brother of the late, great Dale Earnhardt, and local racer Carl Pastriak from New England, who was best known as his presence at the Modified Tour. Let's talk about F1 now. I have to be honest. Yesterday's race can be talked about from all sides of the story. The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix finale lived up to the expectations that was being presented to us through advertisements, promotion, and even the track reconfiguration to an extent. I'm going to get into that in a minute here, but what happened yesterday was pretty much what the FIA wanted, and it's what they got. It's what the racing fans wanted, some of them, and it's what they got.
some some racing fans wanted to see it. Some might. I mean, the line is pretty much cut in half right now. You know, some people saying it was like an entertaining season. Some call this season finale controversial. I don't know why, but in my opinion, that was a hard fought victory for Hamilton. No, not Hamilton. Verstappen. That was a hard
It would
fought
have
season for
been
both
for
drivers.
Hamilton,
You know.
but into that I'll get. Oh, for sure. Verstappen and Hamilton, they were. I mean, you could not put a piece of paper between them. They were that close. Um, that's why they were level in points going into this race. I mean, it didn't happen by accident. This was pretty much a series of 21 incredible battles on the track. between two drivers, the veteran Lewis Hamilton and the youngster, not so inexperienced youngster, Max Verstappen. See, most drivers at the age of 24, let's say we could roll back the clock 1 or 2 decades ago, they would be just in their first few years in Formula One.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen's a veteran at 24. And let's not forget, he was 17. He's supposed to be in high school at 17. He's racing in a Formula One car at 17 in 2015.
That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah. Very next year, he becomes a Grand Prix runner. He hardly was able to drink champagne at most of the podiums he stood on. He was that young. But now, age 24, 7 years in F1, his F1 career, he's been under one system. Of course, the Red Bull program ends up winning the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, taking home this world championship. I'm going to get into that in a moment here, but this was, by many people, from what even I saw, this was Lewis Hamilton's race. It should have been Lewis Hamilton's race.
Yeah. A lot of people are going to say that within reason. But if it hadn't been for a safety car caused by Nicholas Latifi, the championship would have been over, and Lewis Hamilton would have been an historic 8-time winner.
Oh, for sure. Forget whether or not he was going to pit for those extra set of tires. He didn't need to pit, and if anything,
he had this race in the bag, regardless if he needed the tires or not.
No, he had such a big gap. It was clearly on one side, and at that point, Max Verstappen was going for any Hail Mary available. Let's talk about the race results here. So, of course, Verstappen only won one lap in this Grand Prix. He got his 13th career pole, his 10th win of the year, 20th career win. So let's do the math here. 20 divided by 2, that's 10. So half of his wins as a Formula One driver have come in his championship season here, 2021. That's 10 wins in a year.
Wow.
And to bring that perspective in, let's go back to NASCAR for a split second. When Kyle Larson won his championship last month,
oh man,
he won 10 races in that season. And prior to that, he only had 6 career wins. So pretty much more than half the wins he had in his entire career came in his championship season in 21. And it's just like Max Verstappen here. And I think all it took was a good piece of equipment, good piece of machinery for the driver, the talented driver to drive the car and maybe have a way to get to Lewis Hamilton. And this is what a lot of these teams have been lacking for the last several years in this turbo hybrid era. We have not seen the fullest potential of drivers because the cars they're driving are not
keep changing.
Yeah, they keep changing evolving, for better or worse, and they're not at the level where they should have been. And maybe that disparity helps drivers work twice as hard, as we've seen from guys like George Russell. But for the most part, this is what Formula One is in a nutshell. The disparity between the haves and the have-nots, the potential versus the inevitable defeat. And we've seen it. I mean, look at the most decorated constructor in Formula One. They have a 0 in the win columns for now 2 full seasons. I'm talking Ferrari here. Why? They need a good car. I mean, not everybody's going to be a Fernando Alonso here and outperform a bad race car. And that's just maybe the gist of the story here. Let's just continue on the results. So Verstappen taking home his 20th career win, the most special of them all, and only had to lead the last lap. He might have won the pole, but the most important lap to lead in this Grand Prix with the situation that there was that final lap, and Max Verstappen took full advantage of that one lap restart. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Let's go through the results here. Lewis Hamilton, of course, one lap shy of that 8th World Championship, led for 51 of the 58 laps. His 182nd career podium, but he took the defeat like a champion, champion does.
That was a class act.
And congratulations to Mercedes.
For that 8.
Constructors Championship.
Constructors Championship.
All 8 of those Constructors Championships they've earned have come consecutively.
Yeah.
That will probably be a record that will never be broken again once another constructor or a few other constructors topple Mercedes.
I was about to say something about Ferrari. Would it?
Yeah, let's talk about Ferrari.
How many championships does World Constructors Championship does Ferrari has?
And I can't even tell. I was on the tip of my head.
My God.
I know. Right. See, when Mercedes had their first 2 driver championships, I'm talking about like the Fangio era. That was during a time where there was no World Constructors Championship. So it never went on the board for that. And thus when they were in the 2010s and had this huge dominance they had with Turbo Hybrid era, they've been winning World Constructors Championships since 2014. They continue with that, right. but no other constructor has ever come so close to Mercedes than Red Bull has had. And that speaks volumes, especially for next year and the new car configurations. Let's talk about third place for a moment here, because in that same term of constructors, Carlos Sainz Jr. picking home taking home a third place finish, his 6th career podium, and that seals third place for Ferrari in the World Constructors Championship. They may not have won this year, but the drivers do very well working together. Carlos Sainz Jr. and, of course, Charles Leclerc, they work very well together, hand in hand, to put their cars into the top half of the top 10. And that's why Ferrari finished in 3rd over McLaren. I didn't think that was going to happen for most of the season, not until it really kicked in. And I think that return to the top step of the podium is on the way for that constructor, but work still has to be done. Yuki Tsunoda, great effort for Yuki Tsunoda and his team.
Yuki Tsunoda, oh man, listen, man, I was not expecting that from Yuki Tsunoda. What a great race! What a great way to end his rookie season.
Oh yeah, career best finish to 4th, and to top it off, his teammate Pierre Gasly bringing it home in 5th, a double points effort to close out a strong season for AlphaTauri. And just a beautiful way to send off Honda after their return tenure comes to an end, going out on top. That is a special moment for sure. 6th place, another strong performance for Valtteri Bottas. He started 6th. Mercedes get double points, and of course, after Sunday's race ended, Valtteri Bottas bid his farewells to Ferrari. Why did I say Ferrari? I meant Mercedes. I don't know. I was thinking about Rubens Barrichello for a second. Wrong era. He bid his farewells to Mercedes to go, ironically, to a Ferrari engine team at Alfa Romeo. But the point I'm trying to make here is that Valtteri Bottas, in all of his starts with Mercedes, he never missed Q3. That's what, 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 5 full years.
Yes, that's 5 years, man.
He deserves more credit, honestly. Like,
yeah.
You know, that's a driver, a committed driver right there. 7th place, Lionel Norris. Another case of him finding a way to get back in the points at the end of these Grand Prix. Started in the 3rd place spot. Fernando Alonso in 8th. Esteban Ocon in 9th, making double points for Alpine drivers. And Charles Leclerc closes out the points positions in 10th, getting Ferrari a very deserved double points finish to secure P3 in the World Constructors Championship. Of course, McLaren finishing 4th in the World Constructors Championship, a huge year for McLaren. I'll talk about them in a minute here, but let's just go through the guys that fell short of the points in yesterday's finale at the Marina circuit. Sebastian Vettel, of course, ironically, you talking about Red Bull here. The only driver that got Red Bull World Championships, finishes 11th. It has been a bit of a struggling year for him, but there have been very good ups, regardless of what the most of the year looked like, especially compared to 2020. Daniel Ricciardo in 12th. Lance Stroll 13th. Mick Schumacher in 14th. That means Haas F1 scored the first ever 0-point season. It has been a very rocky year for the American team. 15th place. While retired from the race, he was classified for completing 90% of the distance. I'm talking about Sergio Perez, who led for 6 laps and started fourth. Reason for retirement is still unknown. I believe it must have been a mechanical failure. Then to the retired drivers we go. Of course, Nicholas Latifi, the elephant in the room uh, from yesterday's events,
oh God,
crashed on lap 50 of 58. Now, he was several laps down, so he only completed 50 laps prior to the crash. Right. Started 16th. 17th, not 17th place, but the second retirement was Antonio Giovinazzi. And, of course, we know he's not returning to Formula One next year. He's going to be going to Formula E. So there is that. And, of course, he'll be leaving Alfa Romeo's Sauber program. Next, George Russell, of course, lap 26. We saw his transmission break, sending George Russell's final race with Williams an early end. Very, very unfortunate and an emotional time for the Williams team. Of course, the last week we learned about the passing of Sir Frank Williams, the namesake of the team. And before we get to the last driver, Kimi Räikkönen. Farewell, Kimi. The driver who is, statistically speaking, the most experienced of all time in any Formula One career. No driver has ever come close to the amount of starts that Kimi Räikkönen has made in his career. The man they call the Iceman, 42 years old, from Espoo, Finland. The 2007 world champion, the last Ferrari driver to win the world championship, and bringing home 21 career wins. Of course, his first win coming 18 years ago in the Malaysian Grand Prix, and his last win 3 years ago in the United States Grand Prix. It's kind of hard to salvage that next year. We're not going to have Kimi out on this grid. He's going to be a family man, retire. And, all things must pass.
All things got to come to an end.
Yeah. As George Harrison once said. Speaking of that, he was a big Formula One fan.
Right.
But, Kimi was a raw, talented driver for his time. And, I was lucky to at least enjoy a part of his successful career. I was too young to experience his 07 season. I didn't really watch Formula One then when I was a little kid. But, in the early 2010s, he would outperform equipment that was not meant to be outperformed. And, of course, we got to see a little bit of him in rally, a little bit of him in NASCAR. And then
that was pretty awesome,
man. That was fun, seeing him here in the States.
Yeah.
Lotus was up with the team in 2012, and he would outperform that car every race. And
that was insane. That's
2013,
insane.
And of course he went back to Ferrari, and I still feel like Ferrari kind of wronged him in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, ironically, his first win since 2009, it was actually at Abu Dhabi in 2012 when he ironically spoke to the to his team, saying, "Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing."
Yeah.
That was funny.
But here's another famous quote. Kimi, we have a 5-second penalty to remove himself after the race. For what? Oh, man.
I love that. And, of course, last but not least, Nikita Mazepin. He was tested positive for COVID-19 just hours before the start of the finale, and there were no replacement driver available. Thus, Mazepin completed 0 laps to not start the race. There, of course, is your final classification for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Fastest lap for Max Verstappen was on lap 39. It was a 1 minute, 26 second .103. Having that fastest lap snatch would have been perfectly fine. God forbid the two protagonist in the championship would have finished like 9th and 10th. And if you were 10th and had the fastest lap and tied, and you were Max, you would have won the title. Yeah, I was just saying, if this was 1990 and you decided to pull Ayrton Senna, he would have been the champion.
Yeah.
1990 was ridiculous. 89
Unreal.
was horrendous.
89
I'm glad we didn't get a case of 94 either.
Yeah.
And especially not a case of 97.
Yeah, man, that sucks. That sucks. 97 was controversial.
Big time.
Don't even get me wrong. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But he'll be the closest thing we'll ever get. Villeneuve will be the closest thing we'll probably ever get to another American world champion.
Yeah.
But all in all, that's the end of another world championship. And of course, with this, Max Verstappen is the 2021 FIA Formula One world champion. He's the fifth. He gets Red Bull Racing their fifth Formula One world championship. Of course, their previous four were all with Sebastian Vettel from 2010 to 2013. And they had to wait a good 8+ years to get it back. And they finally come to this. And of course, as for the engine manufacturer Honda, we know that's their last race for the foreseeable future. Red Bull provide their own engine starting next year. Honda gets their first drivers' championship, world championship, since 1991 with the Ayrton Senna. So that shows you how much long of a wait they've had to experience to reach this pinnacle of glory.
That was a very long wait.
Right. Other statistics is that he's the first Dutch driver to win a world championship, let alone he was the first Dutch driver to win a race. Now, Max Verstappen has pretty much checked all the boxes for his nation. And just load up anything. I know Snapchat has that map where you can click on different parts of the world and see what they're posting there. And I knew right away to click on different places of the Netherlands, and I see people just taking to the streets, partying, shooting off fireworks, dancing, ballroom dance, the karaoke, all that stuff. We are the champions.
Yeah, man.
It's like 1999 over there. You can also just find that out on YouTube. I looked at tons of YouTube videos. The bars were packed. So yeah, you could understand the vibe. The passion is real. There are so many amazing drivers from the Netherlands in motorsport. Wherever you look, you'll find them quickly. But none of them, in the 70+ years of Formula One, have ever graced the level of success that Max Verstappen has in his career. It just shows you how special this moment really is for that country. Of course, Max being a second-generation driver, he's eclipsed so many levels. He's a protege. It was so good they jumped him right to F1.
Yeah.
Not even a legal adult. He's in a Formula One car.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yep. When I was 17, or when most of us were 17, we're dealing with hell in high school. Just trying to get through the hours and get back home. And here's Max Verstappen, basically on a world tour in a Formula One car. He is a protege.
Talk about living the dream, man.
Yep, living a dream, and he's worked hard for this. And let's just not forget, he's still 24 years old. That's a lot of years left ahead of him. If he wants to continue racing like this, the doors are open. Wherever he wants to go in his career, he's got the opportunities. The doors will always be open. And he's great for the sport. I think this is a world championship that, by the way, he's the first driver born in the 1990s to win a world championship. Shows you how dominant Lewis Hamilton was throughout this past decade. I mean, when you look at Fabio Quartararo, he's younger than both of us.
Wow, eh?
Yeah, he was the first to do that, at least for being younger than my age, winning a world championship in MotoGP. But as for F1, you could tell a dynasty was finally taken, snatched. And a lot of people thought, will this ever happen? Is George Russell going to be the next driver that beats Lewis Hamilton for the world championship? If he's even, audacious enough to do what Nico Rosberg did. I don't know. We'll find out next year, by the way, because that's when
Yeah.
Russell gets into the Mercedes.
Oh, all eyes will be on Mercedes next year.
I
We'll
can't wait.
see.
Okay, so I have all the stats here from all the drivers that graced the track for the Formula One World Championship in the final standings. Let's go through them. Max Verstappen wins the World Championship with 395.5 points. During this year, he picked up 10 wins, 18 podiums, and 10 poles. With that, Max Verstappen wins the pole trophy with his 10 poles. First time he's eclipsed that award in his career. Second place, of course, Lewis Hamilton, 8 points shy of his record-breaking 8th World Championship. Lewis Hamilton, 8 wins, 17 podiums, and 5 poles with 387.5 points. So you can see the difference here. Third place, Valtteri Bottas in his farewell year with Mercedes. 1 win, 11 podiums, 4 poles, 228 points. It shows you how consistent Valtteri Bottas was in that car for the past 5 years. Very impressive drive for sure.
Yeah.
Sergio Perez in his first year with Red Bull picked up a win, 5 podiums.
Hey, man.
Go
Sergio Perez, man. Taking that Red Bull seat, and put on a stellar first year with Red Bull, man. Hey, this guy's got a potential to be world champion in the near future.
He finally got the break he needed.
Absolutely.
Everyone goes back to the year that he replaced Lewis Hamilton when Hamilton left for Mercedes after 2012, going into 2013. So there was still pretty good equipment in hand for Sergio Perez, but he just joined the McLaren when they were heading in a really bad downward spiral. Quote Emblem's words right there. But so like wherever Perez went, the team that was once successful as he's entering is starting to go downhill, down the drain. And finally he got a chance to get into a car that was actually, worthwhile. Even last year to an extent. We knew that possibility of him finally getting that first career win after 190 Grand Prix was paved the way. It could have been possible, and it was. We saw it secure, and it was just so worthwhile watching that. You can watch it over and over again. But great to see him get a best finish of 4th in the World Championship, 190 points.
Yeah.
5th place, Carl Sainz Jr., 164.5 points, no wins, 4 podiums, and 0 poles. 5th place, of course, being Carlos Sainz Jr. However, 4.5 points behind. Lionel Norris tried, but he just lost 5th in the World Drivers' Championship. No wins. He almost got close there. Rush, that was absolutely a nail-biting loss for sure. 1 pole, his first ever pole in F1, and those 4 podiums in the process. 160 points, and just shy with 159 points. 1 point was Charles Leclerc with that 1 podium and a pole. So he got that pole in Monaco and a podium at the British Grand Prix where he almost eked out a win over Lewis Hamilton. But Lewis had those fresher tires. 8th place, Daniel Ricciardo, the man responsible for bringing McLaren their first win since Brazil of 2012. That moment in the Italian Grand Prix, I'll always hold on to that one because it's definitely been a long time coming for McLaren. Of course, that only one was his only podium for 2021 and 0 poles, but got 115 points. Nice turnaround for sure in his first year with McLaren. Pierre Gasly in 9th with 1 podium and 0 poles, no wins, 110 points, 5 points behind Daniel Ricciardo. And Fernando Alonso in his welcome year back into Formula One with that special podium at Qatar, which was his first podium in over 8 years. Fernando Alonso, 87 points. That was a special season for him. Shows you that in Alonso's case, age is really just a number. And we could be seeing him race maybe into his 50s, wherever those disciplines of motorsport might be. I'm sure he'll continue to race the way he has.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the top 10. Let's look from 11th on down. Esteban Ocon with that huge win at the Hungarian Grand Prix this year, and his only podium along with that. Got himself 74 points in the year. Still got beat by his veteran teammate. Sebastian Vettel had that one podium at the second place finish he had at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. I was happy when that happened because if you guys know me, I'm a huge Vettel fan. However, it was only enough for 43 points in the process. His Canadian teammate Lance Stroll did not have a successful year compared to last year by any means. 34 points is all what's there. Yuki Tsunoda, 32 points, but likewise a rookie, takes some getting used to in Formula One. George Russell got that one podium at the so-called Belgian Grand Prix this year, the runner-up finish.
Oh, God.
Nice to see that he put the Williams up there. 16 points for Russell.
Right.
Kimi Räikkönen in his farewell year was classified 16th with 10 points throughout the year. 17th place, Nicholas Latifi. First points as a Formula One driver, got 7 in total. 18th place, Antonio Giovinazzi in his last year in Formula One for the foreseeable future. Picked up 3 points. He's the last driver to be classified with points. 19th place and 20th place, Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin for Haas F1 score 0 points. Both rookie drivers as well. And Robert Kubica, who made 2 starts in place for the sideline, Kimi Räikkönen, picked up 0 points in his return to Formula One. That makes, for 21 drivers, all but 3 scored points this year. It shows you how competitive 2021 truly was. And as for the milestones that we've seen, we had wins from Alpine in Renault's first year after rebranding. We had a win from Esteban Ocon, of all people, at the Hungaroring. It shows you anything is possible. Daniel Ricciardo got McLaren back to victory for the first time in almost 9 years. Lionel Norris scored a pole. George Russell came close to a pole, which could have very well put him into the top step of the podium, basically after learning what happened at the Belgian Grand Prix. And also, Fernando Alonso still got it, and never count out the AlphaTauris. That is essentially all the takeaways from what we've seen in the World Drivers' Championship. But now let's talk about the constructors now. Let's give them some highlights here. Congratulations once again to Mercedes AMG F1, or also known as Mercedes AMG Petronas, the Formula One works team for Mercedes, winning the World Constructors Championship for the 8th year in a row.
Time. What a year.
All of them consecutive. Year, Mercedes needed to work harder than this year in order to continue their success in the World Constructors Championship. They picked up 613.5 points throughout the year, while Red Bull Racing Honda picked up 585.5 points. It actually came down to the final race of the season to determine that, and the championship was locked up the moment Sergio Perez failed to finish the race, pretty much in the closing laps in that safety car period. We're going to talk about the race in a minute here. That's going to need some discussion on its own here. Third place, Ferrari, a great late season charge. And you look at the records here by Ferrari, the Russian Grand Prix, the Hungarian Grand Prix, the French Grand Prix, the Monaco Grand Prix, and the Portuguese Grand Prix were the 5 listed races where Ferrari didn't finish in a double points position. That has to be some of the most consistent numbers that I've seen from any constructor, whether they win or lose this World Championship. Those are very hopeful numbers for the next year, the year after, should they continue to keep these drivers in, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, I think this is something that Ferrari could work with, but they have to, work on it. They can't, make any sudden changes. They're in a good direction, and let's hope that Ferrari can at least keep the puzzle pieces intact and not, break the jigsaw puzzle again. Fourth place, McLaren Mercedes. Now, while they were better off on track off speed and, success, basically by getting poles and wins, one pole and a win, McLaren struggled at getting double points in the second half of the season. In fact, their 1-2 finish at the Italian Grand Prix was kind of like a sign of bad luck to come, because after the Russian Grand Prix, there would be only one double points finish, and that was at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So when one driver does well, the other driver usually has problems, and that's the tale of the second half of the World Championship for McLaren. McLaren's first year back with Mercedes since 2014, a combination that absolutely needs to stay for the long run. It has worked in the past and will continue to work in the future. Fifth place, give a call to these guys. Alpine Renault, the first year of Renault's luxury brand namesake in Formula One, Alpine. And the rebranding, I guess, is maybe them only better. In dark blue and always ready to put a feud on the track with the competitors, especially from what we saw the Hungaroring when they finished first and fourth, with Ocon winning the race and Alonso with old tires holding up Lewis Hamilton the way he did, was some of the best driving I've ever seen. And then, of course, Alonso again at the Qatar Grand Prix. Phenomenal stuff. They have a bright future ahead. Both drivers are coming back, which means that they will only continue to be the ever more successful story of this French team. Sixth place, AlphaTauri Honda. Let's talk about AlphaTauri for a minute. AlphaTauri, just pretty much going from strength to strength. This Red Bull Junior team looks great. Will continue to be good next year. We'll have to see what happens to the post-Honda era for these Red Bull engines. The new power unit's going to be a question of durability, and that can only be answered out on the track on race day, so we'll see what happens there. Aston Martin Mercedes, I'm a little disappointed considering how good the team was as Racing Point last year. The first year back under the Aston Martin banner, 77 points. They did have their moments. Of course, Azerbaijan was the brightest one with a second place finish by Sebastian Vettel. But boy, as a Vettel fan, I was hoping a win could have been there, but we have to be realistic in our hopes. Eighth place, Williams Mercedes. Great year for Williams in comparison to the last 3 years, where they scored only 1 point with Robert Kubica at the 2019 German Grand Prix. Shows you how much of a difference it makes when you get 23 points on the board at the end of the year. And Russell finally got that points finish he also wanted, and backed it up with the near win second place effort at Belgium. 23 points. I think Williams Mercedes will have they'll be in really good hands next year, especially with a driver like Alex Albon, who will be driving for them next year. Alfa Romeo Racing Ferraris, and they're going to go through a lot of makeovers. Of course, we all know what happened with the Sauber business here, but they scored 13 points. We know both drivers are out of F1. Kimi Räikkönen retires. Antonio Giovinazzi's out to go race at Formula E. We'll have Guan Yu Zhou and Valtteri Bottas next year, and Guan Yu Zhou have a lot of work to do to reach the pinnacle of Formula One. He'll be the first Chinese Formula One driver to be on the grid. There's a lot of pressure on him to do well, and I think he's a good driver and all that, but there's still a steep, steep learning curve that he'll have to meet. And what better driver than Valtteri Bottas to have as your mentor? We'll see how this goes. And 10th place, like I said, for the very first time in the Constructors' history, Haas F1 team running the Ferrari powertrain get 0 points in a year. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised, I meant to say. But I am disappointed.
Right.
I thought, maybe at least Mick Schumacher could try something with the car, but the car was just so uncooperative in the first place. And also Nikita Mazepin, mistake after mistake. He's ran out of drivers that he upset this year. But it looks like he might have turned around his off-track report, definitely. I mean, what happened last year was he's lucky he even retained that ride, but, money talks. All in all, that's essentially what the World Constructors' Championship looks like. But now I want to get back into the race here. Let's address the elephant in the room here. So let's go back to lap 1. Lap 1 happens. We have Hamilton in the lead and approaching that first heavy braking hairpin corner, where it leads into a right-hander with several of off-track excursions if needed. Verstappen aggressively, elbows out. We've seen from him this year. Basically pushes Hamilton out of the way. Coming into the corner on the opening lap. Hamilton has to go wide to avoid Verstappen from hitting and damaging Hamilton's car. Lewis Hamilton then goes through the access road, completely gunning, gaining about 2 or 3 tenths from the skirmish, and the FIA basically says no investigation necessary, nothing is wrong here, it's a non-issue, no penalties. Hamilton gains the advantage. For the longest time, I was questioning why there was no penalty to at least advise Hamilton to give up his time that he gained from going off track. I think it was pretty much of a disservice, in my opinion, that the FIA, especially the stewards that have been ran by Michael Massey in charge, essentially decided to let it go. Clearly, Hamilton gained an advantage off the racetrack, cut the corner. Honestly, that was pretty bad on their end. I'll give them that. I'll give them that. Hamilton deserved at least like a 5-second time penalty, or to just have given the position back. Say what you want about Max entering the corner. You have to be fair, and sometimes it's hard to be fair, especially when you have Toto Wolff going full Karen on the radio to Michael Massey. I'm sorry, I'm just telling you how it is. You have Christian Horner, telling everybody that Toto Wolff is overreacting, and the war between the two team principals. It does get political. Let's be real. This is Formula One. If you expected merry-go-round racing, you're at the wrong sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no. I'm just glad that situation in the first few corners was kind of self-policed by the drivers as much as it was unfair, and that both drivers didn't end in the barrier. That we didn't get another 1990 Japan. So I was fearing that. I was fearing that the whole time, that something like this could have happened. Pretty much from then, during the whole time, we see drivers, or at least, so let's go through the mid-race portions of this event. So now we're okay. Hamilton pits, right? So Verstappen pits. Actually, no, here. Hamilton pits on lap 14 to put on, I think, soft tires. Verstappen pits earlier. He does the undercut strategy because he needs to make up time. Perez takes the lead on really old tires, right? 6 laps, Perez leads the Grand Prix. But what I find very intriguing, I know we've been here talking about team orders in a negative way before, countless times.
Yeah.
But we saw some of the most incredible blocking and defending of a position that Sergio Perez has ever done whilst defending for the lead of this race. And while that happened, Max Verstappen was gaining about 3 seconds per lap until, of course, Lewis Hamilton, finally found his way around Checo and never looked back. I just find that very impressive how Sergio Perez with those old tires can hang on for so long. And funny enough, Sergio Perez was able to successfully hold on to Lewis Hamilton with old tires than Lewis Hamilton could do to Max Verstappen. But I'm not here to throw shade on anybody. This is racing here. We're not the drivers. They are.
Yeah.
So the laps wind down and, your cars retire. And all of a sudden, we get this crash with Nicholas Latifi.
The elephant in the room.
Essentially, Latifi crashes. And we get a safety car. And that's lap 53 of 58. And of course, the safety car rules, you have the chance to pit, but you have to essentially queue up when you pit. Max Verstappen knew this. He pitted, but fresh tires on. Lewis Hamilton did not. He wanted to stay in front of the safety car and hope the safety car continues its high rate of speed till the end of the race so that he wins the championship, essentially. Well, that lasted 1 lap too short. This is where the problems begin. So now we're in the penultimate lap of the race. Luckily, this was a track where long laps are conducted. That takes a while to go around the track. Gasmir is a pretty lengthy circuit, but I think we had 3 lap cars. Let me just go through the results here, make sure they were. It was Ocon, Leclerc, and I think it was Norris. Yeah, it was Norris, Alonso, and Ocon, and I think Leclerc. Those guys, or who cares? Who doesn't matter who they were. So during the penultimate lap, the FIA said for this final 1 lap restart, the lap cars may not overtake the safety car and pretty much unlap themselves, thus putting Lewis and Max nose to tail and adjacent to each other. That didn't happen. Their original call half a lap before the race restart was, no, we're leaving the back markers there so we can have a restart. But instead, Michael Massey breaks his own rules and enforces pretty much a sporting code, I guess, a hypothetical one that states these 3 cars between Hamilton and Verstappen can overtake the safety car and go back around the lap. I wonder why. I mean, you can only please Netflix so much, and I'm not going to go out there act accusatory and ignorant because that would be wrong of me. But I will say that was when problems really happened. And I'm not here trying to say that one driver deserved to win it more than the other. No. We're talking about authenticity.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
We're talking about the authenticity of enforcing rules and staying consistent. And even throughout this year, we've had very inconsistent calls by the stewards and the FIA. They have made terrible decisions. They've missed calls. We have seen useless penalties, disqualifications, and fines. But this might have well taken the cake. And as much as I was happy to see Verstappen win the World Championship, we all know deep down inside at that point in the race, he should not have ever been there in the first place. He should at least have been like 4 or 5 cars back physically. Should they have ever even decided to restart the race? And that's my next point. Why did they? Why did they have to restart the race? And as a NASCAR fan, as someone who has seen countless changes just for the sake of more entertaining values to the sport being added, like pretty much any new rule that NASCAR makes these days, you know why they're done? Because certain parts of the sport will put more eyes than others on the TV, on the couch, waiting for certain moments to happen. I'm just telling you what it is. So when NASCAR introduced the stage cautions, the stage racing in 2017, that's about almost 5 years ago, unfortunately. I've pretty much learned to accept it now, but about 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, when they announced the stage racing, I was like, who cares about the stage points? Why do we need a caution flag twice guaranteed in every race? That takes away the authenticity of the race. But what do caution flags do? And NASCAR fans, you know this. When the caution flag waves, what does it set up? A restart. Yeah. Why did NASCAR decide to do double file restarts in 2009 for lead lap cars? I wonder why. What happens when 2 cars are side by side in the corner? What happens a little bit more than 1 by 1 in the corner, single file? Crashes.
Yeah.
Drama. I'm just telling you what it is from a NASCAR fan's perspective. What is the end result of some of these changes? What do crashes produce? Let's be real, like it or not. It produces attention. And I hate to say it like this, but that's what happens when you call a last-second decision to shoo away the lap cars, put the 2 leaders together with disparity of tires, and have a 1-lap restart to decide the biggest world championship in sports. What do you think was going to happen? Listen, I'm just glad that they both came around at the end of the lap and took the checkered flag first and second. Forget who won the world championship here. It could have very well ended in the barriers.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you were saying, 1990, 97. It could have been either of those 2 scenarios.
Hell, those farcical
would have been scary.
Those farcical moments, ironically, never really needed the FIA to cause it. There was no weird calls on any of them. They were just in the hands of the drivers being malicious. It's just flat out ridiculous. And if anything, I was thinking, oh my gosh, if we get another case of this, it would be bad. And even then, Mercedes had a right to protest the call by the FIA stewards. Because last time I checked, the lap cars are supposed to stay where they are. If you call, especially going about 3/4 of a lap before the end of the lap, where the safety car has to come in, that the lap cars must stay where they are and cannot overtake, then you continue on at the pace and you restart the race. You don't reverse your call and make a half call saying, okay, these guys, because they're in between Hamilton and Verstappen, get to go around, so we put the 2 contenders together. I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't care. I mean, God knows. We all know we're tired of Hamilton winning as much as we celebrate his accomplishments.
But that's just his dominance, though.
Right. But we want to be fair. It's not going to sit well 10, 20 years from now, as much as it might have for some of these fans. I don't have any ill will on Michael Massey. Listen, there have been reports, possible death threats have been sent to Michael Massey. Don't let that happen.
Please, man.
I don't condone that extreme behavior. It's wrong. We've seen it we've seen it happen to Hamilton earlier this year. After the British Grand Prix, we've seen it happen to Michael Schumacher and Sterling Marlin and NASCAR. It's not worth it. It's wrong.
We don't ever condone that type of behavior ever.
Never. But I'm going to say, is that Michael Massey, it just does not give you a ticket to trash him, but what it, the point I'm trying to make is that you either like a call or you don't, and you can't fix everything. You can't make everybody happy, but F1 kind of set themselves up for the World Championship to end like this, and whatever the case was, it happened. You just go on Facebook, go on. Man, this is where I'm like saying YouTube. Can you idiots at YouTube allow the dislike features to be shown again? Hell, just grow up.
Yeah.
Bring back the dislikes. Let's see it. Let's see the dislikes. I would love to have known how many dislikes there were into likes on all the videos that F1 has posted this past weekend. I would have loved to have seen it, kind of like we saw at DTM when the dislikes just over ratio the likes with that farce of a finale to that championship. But that's for another story. All in all, this is something that's going to sit with us for not days, not months, not years, but decades. There has never been a world championship this close. And we could go back to even some of the closer battles like 2012 when we had several drivers involved. 2010 could be another example of that. 2007 and even 2008. 2005 when Schumacher finally got put to a stop by Alonso. All in all, this is a bit of a changing of the guards. Does this championship by Max Verstappen mean that Lewis Hamilton is not going to be able to win that 8th World Drivers' Championship? To that, I say no. Lewis Hamilton is not done by any means. The only person that will decide Lewis Hamilton's fate in Formula One will be Lewis Hamilton himself. He looked very content, as much as he was disappointed about the result from yesterday's Grand Prix, and of course that he was finally put to a stop. The quest to win 5 straight World Drivers' Championships came to an end. Forget Nico Rosberg for a second. He probably would have had like all 7 of them combined in that 8th, and it would have been like a 9th. But this is Formula One. Eras come and go. Some teams have dynasties more so than others. We've seen it with McLaren. We've seen it with Ferrari. We have seen it with Red Bull. And we've seen it with Mercedes. Mercedes isn't done. If you're a Mercedes fan, I don't think that you should be upset at all for the future. You shouldn't be worried. The only thing you should be worried about is more competition. And that is what is going to make the entertainment value of Formula One so high for next year. I honestly can't wait. I can't wait for next year. I can't wait to see what the new car configurations are going to look like on the racetrack. I can't wait to see Formula One in my damn home state for the first time since Sebring in 1959 in the inaugural U.S. Grand Prix. We're going to get the Miami Grand Prix in Miami Gardens. I mean, come on. Next year is going to be awesome. Australia, Canada, Japan, Singapore, they're all coming back. I think it's worth being excited for next year in Formula One. We're gonna see some really good action, but it's hard to tell with this new configuration who's gonna come out on top. Remember in 2014, we all thought maybe Red Bull was gonna continue on like what they were in the past. That was not meant to be, and out went Sebastian Vettel at the end of the season. Mercedes started their dominance. How will George Russell fare out in a Mercedes on a weekly basis? Everyone wants to revert back to the secure Grand Prix, but let me hold you up on that and say that it takes 23 races now to win a world championship. It takes audacity and fearlessness as well as passion to outthrone your teammate. It's not an ideal thing. Listen, Formula One, You're the number one driver and the number two driver, and it's on George Russell whether or not he wants to settle as being number two driver. Usually, at least Mercedes kind of lets their drivers handle it on their own. But as with this team orders thing, I don't think we should expect any of that from both Mercedes drivers next year. We might still have to see that from Red Bull. Ferrari, we didn't really see team orders as much as we usually do. Ironically, team orders is what Ferrari is best known for. But listen, they had to work together. They had to let the best driver in the best car stay in front for most of the races in this year in order for them to beat McLaren for third in the World Constructors Championship. So I'm telling you, the team orders thing that you guys have been dreading for years, I don't think that's going to happen. We're not really going to get another O2 Austria situation. Hopefully we'll never get that again. But all in all, that was an awesome season. This season. And for Formula One fans, we have been longing for a world championship to come down to this. You know, we marvel about the past. We marvel about history, and we look back at it with so much fondness, and we kind of long to see some of the history repeat itself, even to certain dynasties like Ferrari coming back. But hey, look at any old blog that's still up from 2005, some 16 years ago, and you will find people celebrating the demise of Ferrari's dominance. I'm just telling you what it is. People sometimes get tired of those who succeed too much and want to see a changing in the guards. Well, we kind of got a changing in the guards. We certainly had the product we were waiting for. We waited a long time for this, and even in Sebastian Vettel's era, it was really only 2010 and 2012 when we had those close battles. Other than that, it was all Vettel and La La Land. As much as I was a fan of him, you know, people were tired of him. People got tired of him. Lewis Hamilton, people got excited in 2014. Who changed into the guards? 2015 and 16 come around. You know, Rosberg and then Hamilton from 17 all the way to 20. People got tired of Hamilton. People get tired of you if you win too much. People got tired of Prost. People got tired of Senna. And of course, people got tired of Michael Schumacher. This is nothing new. So don't take these world championship moments for granted. You never know when your driver's time is up. That is the moral of the story in Formula One. And next year, we'll see what happens. Can Max Verstappen continue this dominance? And by the way, for the first time since 2014, the defending champion will use car number 1. By the way, that's a reserved number for defending champions if they choose to do so and run that number in their defending year. And that's what Max Verstappen is going to do. He's going to give up that 33 and choose number 1 because he is number 1. And that is pretty much it. Well, let's continue on with the weekend we had in the Formula One weekend. Of course, everyone's going to talk about that, but the side shows to the main show, of course, Formula 2, Formula 3, we had the W Series, first time joining the Grand Prix weekend, as well as the traditional Porsche Super Cup. The FIA Formula 2 Championship went to Oscar Piastri. FIA Formula 3 Championship went to Dennis Hauger. The W Series Championship went to Jamie Chadwick, and the Porsche Super Cup Championship went to Larry Ten Voord. That's from all the weekends so far. Now let's talk about what we saw on the weekend with Formula 2. The FIA Formula 2 Championship came to a close at the Yas Marina Circuit as part of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend. Let's look at what happened in Sprint Race 1 for Week 8 of 8 to close out this championship. Jan Daruvula took home the win from first off the grid. He had a very good car. A 2-second gap margin of victory for Jan Daruvula. Second place went to Felipe Drugovich. Third place, Oscar Piastri. Fourth place, Robert Schwartzman. And Liam Lawson rounded out the top 5. Dan Ticktum, Théo Pourchaire back from an injury sustained in a crash in Saudi Arabia. And Guan Yu Zhou picked up the final point. Of course, remember, 8 drivers pick up points in the sprint races from 15 down to 1. Sprint race 2 was won by Guan Yu Zhou with a margin of victory of 3.5 seconds, a race that lasted for 43 minutes. Second place went to Robert Schwartzman. Third place, Ralph Boschung. Fourth place, Dan Ticktum. Fifth place, Felipe Drugovich. Sixth place, Liam Lawson, Jan Daruvula in 7th, and Jack Doohan in 8th. And the feature race went down to Oscar Piastri. How fitting to end his championship on top. The Australian from Melbourne, Victoria, picked up points from pole position and had a 3.2 second margin of victory over UNI Virtuosi Racing's Guan Yu Zhou and Felipe Drugovich. Great way to end his championship season on top, as he should. Théo Pourchaire in 4th place picked up the fastest lap in the feature race. Robert Schwartzman in 5th. Dan Ticktum in 6th. Remember, 10 drivers pick up points in the feature race. Marcus Armstrong, the Kiwi, in 7th. Yuri Vips in 8th, the run for the Estonian. Ralph Boschung in 9th. And Richard Verschoor picked up the final point. The final standings in the FIA Formula 2 Championship. Oscar Piastri brings home the big trophy. In fact, he won the Formula Renault Championship in 2019. Last year, he won the FIA Formula 3 Championship. And this year, he wins the FIA Formula 2 Championship. It's a crying shame that Oscar Piastri is not one of the 20 drivers in a Formula 1 car on a weekend basis. That, shows you how much of a disparity Formula 1 can be on the financial scale. Let's talk about the final standings, though. Oscar Piastri picking up the championship with 252.5 points. Second place, Robert Schwartzman. Once again, the bridesmaid, 192 points for him. Guan Yu Zhou going to Formula 1 next year with 183 points in the bag. Good enough for third. Fourth place went to Dan Ticktum at 159.5 points, and Théo Pourchaire in 5th with 140 points. Good season for him. He rounds out the top 5. Yuri Vips in 6th place with 120 points for him. Jan Daruvula in 7th with 113 points. Felipe Drugovich in 8th with 105 points. Liam Lawson in 9th with 103 points. And in 10th place, we had with 59.5 points, Ralph Boschung. In total, everybody except for 6 drivers picked up points this year. We had 29 drivers in full. Very competitive season as always for Formula 2. And as for the team's championship, we had 11 teams in total. Prema Power Team, also known as Prema Racing, pick up their 3rd team's championship. By the way, Prema's, I think it's their 4th championship. Yeah, Prema's 4th driver championship with Oscar Piastri, but their 3rd team's championship in this honor. That includes GP2, the predecessor namesake for second tier Formula 1 Grand Prix weekend racing. Prema win this one with 444.5 points. That was close, hasn't it? Not so much, I meant. UNI Virtuosi Racing in 2nd with 288 points. 3rd place, Carlin Racing with 272.5 points. 4th place, High Tech Grand Prix with 223 points. 5th place went to Arc Grand Prix at 190 points. Then 6th place, we had MP Motorsport with 75 points. 7th place, Campos Racing with 66.5 points. And half a point behind them were Doms with 66 points. 9th place, Trident with 35 points. 10th place went to Chiru Racing Systems at 28 points. And with 9 points in 11th and last place was HWA Race Lab. So those were the standings as for Formula 2. And Formula 2 was not as bad. I mean, people did criticize the format of the weekend in relation to last year in the traditional, second tier Formula One Grand Prix weekend format. I mean, the sprint race, preferably, I would have liked to see just a feature and a sprint to make it, more quick, fluid the weekend rather than having two races, like the two sprint races, one before the qualifying and Formula One qualifying, and then after Formula One qualifying. Rather just have one event and then the next day have the other event, get to test the drivers, durabilities with the, mandating the pitting and all that. By the way, also congratulations to Oscar Piastri on winning the special Antoine Hubert Award. Of course, this is the second year of the Antoine Hubert Award in the memory of the fallen racer who lost his life doing what he loved 2 years ago. So yeah, I was gonna say is that Formula 2, I kind of preferred the feature on one day and the sprint in the next. That way we can see who does better in the pitting strategy, like in the feature race, because they make you pit once for tires, and then the sprint race is just no pitting, all out racing. It's fun to watch, but I think 1-1 is better than 2 of 1 in the feature. Also, it's more time consuming, just off a selfish scale. But all in all, it was a fun season to watch. I really enjoyed seeing the diverse grid of drivers and seeing those who can hang on and pull some upsets there, like we saw with Marcus Armstrong and Yuri Vips. He's got some years in the bag. We're looking at the future of racing here, whether or not they're going to Formula One. That's on them. Now, what I wanted to do, as this is the last, last weekend of racing in 2021, is I wanted to look back at some of the races from earlier this year and just look at some of the memories of 2021 and really see that, that this was a good year of racing, much better than last year. Of course, last year we still have restrictions on normal life, but not as bad as it was, at the end of last year. And it's always fun to look at the good stuff, the endurance racing, how many drivers that have, made it to some of the big events. The 24 Hours of Daytona was phenomenal. We had a great race in Le Mans this year with fans. Sure wasn't in our traditional June date, but it was some of the most special driving that I've seen in quite some time. Looking at the IMSA WeatherTech Championship finale, that was just a race of devotion at Road Atlanta. I was lucky to be there at Sebring for the 24H Series finale, watching 24 hours of action at that track. Ain't nothing like it. NASCAR, we got to see Kyle Larson finally get the chance to perform at his fullest potential in a comeback of the Ages Championship situation, after being out, not knowing where his NASCAR career would have gone, if it even continued at all, to becoming one of the most historically great champions that we've ever seen in the sport. There's just quite nothing like it. We got to see 3 first-time winners at Talladega on the same weekend this past October, along with, what happened on Saturday. And, of course, Bubba Wallace picking up his first NASCAR victory. How special was that? Upset wins were nothing special. I mean, you look at Daytona, we had Michael McDowell, mostly known for his big crash at Texas in his second ever NASCAR Cup start, had to live with that burden of a stigma everywhere he went. And he was also known as being a starting park backmarker who could only do well in road courses. Say what you want. He ended up winning the Daytona freaking 500. I'll be glad to be there next year. Hopefully we can do it again. Let's not forget about other great stories like NASCAR returning to dirt tracks. First time in 51 years, the Cup cars made it on dirt and raced on dirt, pretty much bringing it back to the grassroots days of stock car racing. How about all the new tracks that NASCAR ran this year? We had Circuit of the Americas, Road America, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course, um, Nashville Super Speedway. I'm sure I'm missing one. I have to be. I mean, hell, next year we'll be talking about the clash of all places, the damn LA Coliseum. What is NASCAR thinking? In the end, I mean, it's another year in the books. Let's not forget some of the other special moments we saw in motorsport, like how Audi beat out the Porsche dominance in the 24H series. Like I said, I was there to see it. The 24 Hours of Sebring Electronic Racing, with some of the better drivers withstanding the bumps, and they ended up being within a lap of each other at the very end. That was something special to watch. You know what also was special was the insane racing for the World Endurance Championships at the end. The controversy, yeah, we were talking about that for most of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, but there were a lot of just passionate racing. The European Le Mans Series never failed to impress, and the GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup was awesome. Hopefully, we'll get everything settled for or sorted out and get those guys from the IGTC to South Africa so we can have that 9 hours of Kyalami. Other than that, we never really had major race cancellations other than reported reasons, and most of those cancellations, luckily, were done earlier this year. We had an awesome Bathurst 1000 with more fans, and it felt truly like a race from the 90s. All in all, it was a great year. IndyCar. Let's not the Indianapolis 500. We witnessed history with Elio Castroneves winning 4 Indianapolis 500s, becoming the 4th driver to ever make such an accomplishment. Like I said earlier in the podcast, when commenting about the passing of Alonso, that we finally got to see all 4 drivers in a picture after Elio's big win, and that's very special. Some of these once-in-a-lifetime moments definitely include Alex Palou winning that championship in his first year at Chip Ganassi's team. It was not really that much of a favorite to win the title. More so, we were looking at Scott Dixon possibly making history, tying AJ Foyt on the championship board. Jamie Whincup's retirement, that's he's a driver that I've looked up to for years. It's gonna be sad to see him out. Kimi Räikkönen, Kazuki Nakajima, just some other drivers that called it quits. Patrick Long and some others. But yeah, well, this podcast, as much as I love being out here, this will be the last episode for quite some time. I definitely appreciate all of you listeners that have been tuning in from the years that we've been here, from COVID-19 interviews to jokes from 2019 when we were amateurs, and wherever we are, we'll be around. Just check out World Racing Media on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, always be on the lookout for our YouTube channel. There might be some new stuff to come, so you just stay on the loop for that. And happy holidays. Have a happy and safe holidays. Merry Christmas. Hope you guys had a great Hanukkah like I did myself. And just be safe out there. Enjoy the winter. Hopefully 22 will have everything nicely put together for us. Hopefully. We can't trust the people in the big house. So on top, I think this is a time to set off this podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. For my partners, Justin Hebert, Daniel Ford, and all the guests that's been around here, I'm Joe Laney Pallon. Signing off. Have a good one.